My obesity story. Pudginess is such a sad affair. How was that? Okay, I was going to use this one. Does that look more like a microphone? And I can hardly wait till it is lunch again. What happened? How did I gain so much weight? I was not a fat kid. I was skinny. I have pictures to prove it, and someday I'll find them. I have boxes of photos. Well, I am almost 64, so it's been a long life. And back then it was all hard copies, you know. I like hard copies. Computer stuff, it makes me nervous. But back to obesity. So I was a skinny kid till 2nd grade. Now, I was an abused child. It's not my mother's fault. She got creamed way worse than I ever did. And she was just acting out what was done to her on a smaller scale. And but, you know, it was scary to a child. And had a lot of, you know, sadness from very young. I'd have to try to hide from her so she wouldn't hurt me further, you know. Sometimes I crammed myself as far as I could behind a dresser, and my father found me once behind a dresser, and he said, "Your mom's just very nervous." Bless him, he loved her so much. Back then, you know, we're talking about the 60s, you didn't seek out help for things like that. Counseling was for crazy people. That's what everybody thought. It was a shameful thing, you know. Anyway, I'd attach myself to female teachers because I was looking for motherly love, you know. And, you know, you can't do that because teachers got to have that, you know. And I remember I got my ass kicked one time because I told my 2nd grade teacher I wish she were my mother. And at a conference, teacher-parent conference, my father always did those. Not my mother never. She had a lot of self-esteem problems. So my father went to that conference. They said, "Is there any problems at home? Is the mother absent?" Well, when Mom found that out, I got my ass kicked, so I never again crossed that line. So in 2nd grade, we moved. I was at the Woodman Park School, and I did very poorly. They pushed me from 1st grade into 2nd, but then in 2nd grade, I failed. And so I was still thin. That was traumatic. I remember one time I was bringing my semester papers home from 1st grade, no 2nd grade. And the wind blew them, and every single page was an F, fail. And some kids were helping me pick up the papers, and one of the young boys said, "You failed everything, or you unsatisfactory?" And I just felt so ashamed. I couldn't learn. I just couldn't. I didn't understand. Nothing sunk in. Nothing absorbed. Nothing stayed. Could be from abuse. Yeah, you know, when you're wondering if you're going to get your butt kicked when you get home. I guess that would really... And I lived in fantasy land, you know. Back then, these guys would come by with little suitcases. If you're around my age, you'll understand. Well, not little suitcases. Some of them are pretty damn big. They were door-to-door salesmen. And my mother bought some things for the kitchen, and the man gave her for free this beautiful fairy tale book. I want to get them back. Sometimes I've seen them before, but they're outrageous. They're like $100 each now, you know, to get them from the, I think they were printed in the 50s or 40s, and he had that big book, and he gave it to my mother for me. And I couldn't read at first, of course, because I was only like 4, and I'd beg her to read me a story. And once she read me a story, it stuck, and I'd look at the beautiful pages, and I'd think about the story. And then when I went to school, I started school at the age of 6. Cinderella, Beauty and the Beast. I mean, all the stories were there in my head, and I just would stare out the window while everyone was doing their work, and I'd dream about these beautiful stories of being rescued. How very sad. Well, my father got a position in Ohio near Akron, the Sun Rubber Company. My father was one of the engineers who helped develop the Hoppity Ball. And I used to get such cool toys. He would bring home samples all the time. Such cool stuff. And we were the first to get a Hoppity Ball before it was ever even out to market. We had like 3 of them. And I loved those things. I'd hop all over the place, you know. Well, in 3rd grade, that school gave out seconds at lunch. And I was on the hot lunch program. I don't know if they were paying for it or what was going on, but every day I got hot lunch, and I'd go up for seconds. The taste was so comforting. So comforting. And, you know, they didn't feed healthy food. There were hamburgers, and there was corned beef hash, and, you know, lots and lots of fat. And you're sitting all day long. I mean, you got a little bit of 15-minute, 20-minute recess, that was it, and back to sitting in a... I didn't like sitting at a desk. I still don't like sitting at a desk. My mind has to be free to wander. I think that's why I love the outdoors so much, because when I get home from school, I got to run outside and play under the trees. And in my mind, this little dinky yard, because I went back years later to look at it when I grew up, it seemed like a big forest in my mind. And we had a tree house my father built. I was scared of heights, so I didn't often go up there. Usually my brother John, my oldest brother, had to help me. But back to obesity. So, and then, so I got fat. I got really fat. I was like, as a 3rd grader, I think it was like 80 or 90 pounds. It was awful. Trying to find me clothes back in those days at that weight was very difficult. My mom didn't do anything about it. She was, you know, the cookie baker, the cake baker. She wasn't fat. But I was. My brothers weren't fat. I was. And when I was about 11, I think I was 10, and I was not as obese, but I was overweight. There was this doctor who gave diet pills. And I went on them, and it was a nightmare. And then I went on them again when I was in junior high, always trying to stay thin. And, you know, those completely took your appetite away. I was 11 years old. I was taking, you know, those capsules that were black half and green half. What do they call them? Black Beauties, Green Hornets. I don't know. They were a drug. And the miracle of it was I'd take one bite of something and I didn't want any more food. And I got thin. But my grandmother died. I was very close to her, my mother's mother. She died when I was going through all this with the diet pills. And I don't know, I was up all night, every night. These pills didn't let me sleep, so, you know, I'd draw, and I'd create stuff with clay, and I would think of her, and then I'd go to school, all strung out, fell down the stairs. I don't know. I just constantly was dieting, constantly was using pills when the diet pill thingy wouldn't give me anymore. My mother helped me out by getting me Dexatrim. Yay. I think that's why her heart went. She was still doing it after I quit. And, because she had problems too with compulsive eating, you know. We were sweet eaters. Oh, we loved sweets. When the first Willy Wonka movie came out with Gene, what the heck was his name? You know, Gilda Radner's husband. I don't know. Anyway, little red-haired guy. I never saw the movie, but I saw the candy bars. And we fell in love with this candy bar called Scrunch. God, sweets were good back then. And Sara Lee had this fudge cake. Oh, dear God. I can't even describe it. I can't even tell you what it tastes like. It was like heaven at every bite. So good. And we'd buy those. And we'd go on binges. And then we would starve ourselves with Dexatrim for days. That's how I lived to stay trim. I looked pretty darn good. Of course, my hair was falling out back then. Probably from all the sugar. Probably from the genes. You see, I have bald genes on my mother's side and bald gene on my father's side. And 2 bald genes is a big for a woman. So, the other thing I loved was McDonald's. McDonald's is my kind of place. Da, 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 da. And filet of fish and fries. Oh my God, that was my go-to with every pregnancy. I had to have a filet of fish and fries a couple times a week. I still love filet of fish and fries, but thank God I can't taste anything anymore, and that helps. So, and I'm having a very hard time getting my weight down. I mean, I'm obese. I'm like 40 BMI. And it scares me. I'm too old for this. When I'm having trouble with my hip sockets, you know, and years ago, and I mean years ago, Bonnie was like, I don't know, 7 years old. I went to doctor and she said, you're going to have hip replacement if you don't do something about this in 5 years. Because my gait was wrong. You know how I walked? And I had severe back problems. I've had hip and back problems since my working in factory days, and I was thin then because I was starving myself. Then finally, just before I became pregnant with Bonnie, I was in my about 40-ish, I started walking. And I used the diet Fit for Life. That was basically becoming vegan over the course of time. And when I got bored of that, because you will get bored of that, I started just doing low fat, low calorie, and I walked 7 miles a day. And even doing all of that, I could only get down to 150 pounds. And I'm only, back then I was about 5'2". Right now I'm 5'1", because I have, I started out as 5'3" or 5'4" as a young person, but degenerative disc disease, you know, everything's just disappearing. It like deteriorates and your vertebrae and such get smaller and smaller, right? And so I'm only like 5'1" now. You know, I think I lost 3 inches over the course of time. You lose all that anyway with age, I guess, and your nose gets bigger and your ears get bigger. My ears were always little tiny, but let's not talk about that. So I fell in love with Dennis in my 20s. Well, first I married crazy bastard, #1 husband, and he was a wife beater. I just wanted to get out of my house because my brother Phil, I shouldn't have said that, he was hitting me. I was a single mom. No, I was a woman alone. And he was just out of control. He didn't even live there, but he'd come over, and if, you know, anybody said anything, he'd just let you have it. And so I just wanted out of there. My mother was very mentally abusive at that time. I couldn't function. I couldn't function normally. I couldn't hold a job. It was really bad. I fell into the niche, though, of, I was working, I would have stayed with Bailey Corporation in Seabrook, New Hampshire, except my back and neck went into spasm from working 72 hours a week, factory work, making car parts, right? And I wasn't union yet, and because of that, they fired me. And, because I had neck problems, instead of, giving me a chance. I should have went and talked to someone. I was making $600 a week way back then, in the 80s, and that's when my first back troubles start. And then I went to Genesis making tweeter and woofer cones, and their machines didn't work, and you'd have to bang, 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 bang on this big long metal arm, and to release it so the water would drain, and then it would leave the cone on the little form. And my neck and back troubles, just further got aggravated. Then there were car accidents. And so a big issue later on, I was able to keep starving myself and stay thin at that time. And then I was a beautiful woman. I met this guy, Jay, through a cousin. And he was in Pennsylvania, and I was writing to him, and we started calling each other, and he's very intelligent, entertaining. He had such a nice voice, and he came to meet me. And I just wanted out. I wanted out of my mother's home, and I wanted my own family, and I wanted children, and I just wanted my own life, and so I married him, knowing nothing about him. Come to find out, he was very violent. He had hurt girlfriends. He had, I would find out from one of his friends later, his last girlfriend before me, he pushed her through a glass door. She got very hurt. But because I was very beautiful, he was really careful where he hit. He didn't want to mar my face. And he didn't brutalize me like he did his other women. And I was a Christian, and I didn't want a divorce. But I also was a woman, and I did not want to be without a man. I'd stay with him, and then I'd go to the abuse shelter, and then I'd go home to New Hampshire, and then I'd go back to him, and then I'd go to the abuse center, and I'd go back to New Hampshire, and finally, I said, to hell with everything. To heck with God. To heck with everything I ever believed. To heck with marriage. I'm getting a divorce. And I had my first daughter, Rachel. And I was still thin. I started working cleaning houses. And that's hard work. And I was, able to, do my crazy diets. And, the diets. Oh, my God. I had done every diet that was in the Enquirer. And every crash diet that was, like, anywhere on the news or anything. I did it. It was a grapefruit and boiled egg diet. 3 cans a day diet. That would be 3 cans of vegetables a day. That's what I lived off of. The 3 cans of soup diet. The Atkins diet. I just dieted and dieted and dieted. Oh, the eat once a day diet. I loved that one. You'd eat whatever you wanted within a 1-hour period. And my mother and I would have Stouffer's lasagna, a salad, and Sara Lee chocolate cake. And a roll. And that's all we'd eat all day. And I drink black coffee, Oh, there was those little candies. What the heck were those called? They were like a little caramel, and you'd eat it with a hot drink, and then supposedly you would, we ended up eating the whole box. One day, we're just like, let's have another one. Want another one? Yeah, let's have another one. That was me and Mom. Anyway, once, so I was able to maintain my weight. I drank a lot. I would have a cup of broth and a carrot, and then I'd go out to the bars. And it was hard because Rachel, I didn't know then, had manic depressive disorder. I wondered why she never slept at night. And so, you know, I'd always have to hope she would fall asleep so that I could go out. Sometimes she did, sometimes she didn't. And, I don't know, I just wanted to party, party, party. And I maintained my weight. I was about 120 pounds back then, 5'4". And then I ended up going back to Jay. Rachel was about 2 years old, and he was going to AA. And he said, if you're coming back, you have to go to Al-Anon. I was shy and I didn't want to go. And I said, can't I just go to your AA meeting with you? And he said, sure, come on. And so I went. And it resonated in me. I understood what they were talking about. I didn't drink like they drank. But I felt the same feelings. I understood. And so I joined AA. But I had to be honest. I didn't love Jay anymore. And I didn't want to stay with him anymore. I was looking for answers and you know, solve my life's problems. And I ended up leaving. And he didn't hit me. He did spit at me, but he didn't hit me. And so I went on the bus and with my little girl, and I went home. I lived with my mom. But my brother was coming around. He was very abusive. I met Dennis at the Dry Dock Club in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. It was an AA club. And I don't know. There was something about him. Probably I didn't realize that I had had a rendezvous with him years before. And didn't recognize him because he was obese. We got married. And I still had so many issues. So I went to OA and I started on the gray sheet. They don't do that anymore. It's a starvation diet, and I would black out. We were working very hard job. I'd started my cleaning business up again because he got hurt on a job. He had already had back injuries, and he started having sleep apnea problems, choking from the fumes from the paint. From he was at the nuclear power plant in Seabrook. Boy, this is going to be a long one. I'm already at 23 minutes. Anyway, to make a long story longer, I started eating. I had to keep starving myself to be able to get that weight down. And we were working very, very hard. I started my cleaning business, and while his back was recovering and he was trying to recover with a sleep apnea problem, oh, God bless him, because he was overweight again. That didn't help. Oh, he snored awful. I'm trying to remember the story. Give me a minute. He started working with me, and my mother watched the children. I had Rachel, then about 5 or 6, and Denny Jr., who was about a year old, maybe, if that. And so my mom took care of him, God bless her soul. She was abusing my daughter Rachel, and I didn't know it. Rachel would never tell on her. Poor Rachel. But back to my weight. That's another story. Ugh, nightmares. Nightmares! I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. Antiques happened. Dennis started getting stuff from people we cleaned for. Hey, would you like this piece of furniture, this, that, and pretty soon we had all this stuff, right? And we found that we could sell it at the yard sales. And then Dennis said one day, hey, let's take the van and go around. It's big garbage day. Let's see what we can find to resell. And we'd start picking. He knew old stuff because his relatives were very, very old, and he remembers the antiques in the house, so he recognized them right away. What he didn't recognize was that these were worth more money than we were selling them for. So one day we were going by a auction house, and we went in there, and there was all our stuff we sold at a yard sale going for, you know, 50, 60 times, 100 times what we sold it for. And so we got smarter and started to look things up and realized that he knew antiques. That left me at home with the children, and we didn't really have a home. It was really, really crazy. Things just, I don't know, I just kept gaining weight, and then I'd diet, and I'd lose weight, and then I'd gain more weight, and in the end, I just kept gaining weight once I had Bonnie, and I just couldn't seem to stop. And that leads me to where I am now. I wasn't that bad in my 50s. Late 50s, it got worse. You know, the fibromyalgia kicked in 2004 after a car accident, and I didn't even know what was wrong with me. I just knew that I ached from my head to my toe, plus my neck and my back. That was my third car accident. And I became sedentary. I didn't want to walk. I had trouble with the first accident walking, but my husband kept me moving, He'd come home from work. Come on, Nikki, we're going for a walk. And I was in rip-roaring pain. It was horrible. And I think between the back injuries, the fibromyalgia, and the depression, because I wasn't always happy in my marriage, he was always gone. And when he was home, he was very insulting. He just could be a bully. Yes, he could be a bully. But I was just in love with him, and I knew I couldn't leave him, having, you know, small children and having no education. Throughout our marriage, I thought about leaving him, but I loved him too at the same time, so it was this love-hate relationship, and isn't that funny? And yet I miss him so bad. Well, you know, when we got older and I got smarter, I started fighting back, and I realized what he was doing, and I'd call him on it, and that helped. But he was still very controlling, but I learned that when he wasn't there for 6 months out of each year, I did what I pleased. Then I had to conform for the 5 months, 6 months that he came home. And then as soon as he went to a show, I could be me again. It was kind of sad, but true. And then becoming his caregiver, that's when I really started to gain weight, you know. I did not want to be a caregiver. And he was very demanding. Well, that's pretty much the story of my weight problem. And I'm still battling it and still struggling to lose weight. I've gotten 20 pounds off, and I'm stuck. I'm stuck. I don't want to starve myself. I don't want to do crazy things. I eat 3 meals a day, but sometimes I want sugar, and I'll eat a couple of Werthers, or I'll eat some chocolate, or I'll eat some ice cream, and boy, I've got to be so restrictive on calories to lose anything at this point. I need to do like 11 to 1200 tops, and I need 14 to 15 to feel like I've eaten. So it's a real struggle right now. But that's the story of my weight struggles, and my current situation is I'm still trying to lose weight, and I can't exercise very much. I can do some bed exercises. Right now I got to be careful because I went on this cleaning rampage. I cleaned this room, and look, I made my bed. Dun, da, da, da. There's my laundry. I cleaned my bathroom. I washed my windows. Very exciting. I have to dismiss that. Oh, there's an alarm going off. And I started putting the stuff out for the yard sale. And now, what am I doing? Now I'm resting my back. My daughter-in-law is going to come get me today, and I'm going to go to the pool with them because they have a pool at their apartment complex. And I'll swim around. I'll try to get some exercise. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thanks for tuning in. I have like 400 subscribers. Hey, when we get to 500, let's have a party. This is weird. Okay. Talk to you later. Someone's calling me. Bye.